We are witnessing great chaos, lots of confusion, hate, and conflict in the US and all over the world right now. Trump has announced and put into place a lot of changes within the first weeks being in office. Opinion against opinion, arguments against arguments, lots of fighting furs, againsts and deep frustration and fear. The country seems to be deeply divided. Many are losing hope. So far the situation. But what if all of what is going on right now is a good thing and is the initial phase of the birthing of a new era and form of living together in peace and harmony on this planet? WTF? Many will ask now? With a guy that divides instead of unites and gives a shit about what people say? I am not a citizen of the US and could be very upset about how Trump is behaving right now with his America First approach if I would see it from the 3D human perspective. It is impossible to see the perfection in this from a human point of view. Humans are always caught up in duality and an either/or way of thinking. As a human, you can be either for or against something. It does not even appear to us that we have a third option, becoming a neutral observer without being drawn into the drama. So let's leave the human perspective for this article and look at what is happening from a higher perspective, a soul perspective, a universal perspective, an energetic perspective. In order to understand the bigger picture, we need to leave the human perspective and see it from a higher perspective, a soul perspective, a universal perspective, an energetic perspective. What we are actually experiencing right now is an exact blueprint of the spiritual awakening of a nation. The USA is the first nation to go through this in the Western society and will lead the process of this grand awakening for the whole planet. The easiest way to understand why that is to draw the parallels to our own spiritual awakening experience on an individual level and to understand the deeper layers and energetic perspective running in the background. Chaos is good. A first very central thing to understand is, chaos is necessary to change a system. No matter if it is our own body when we go through spiritual awakening, or a whole economic, political, and cultural system. In order to get into chaos, you need fear on our third-dimensional level. Fear in itself is not a bad thing, it is simply an energetic vibration that we experience with our human body. It only becomes dangerous when fear is interpreted by the ego as something bad and dark. The fear energy itself helps us to accumulate energy quickly to initiate an immediate action to change a situation, the fight or flight response. This response was and is necessary to protect us when we were in real-life danger. And when we need to build up a lot of energy quickly and get a crystal clear idea what to do, fight, run away or play dead to change the situation into safety mode again. So, experienced fear energy is actually a huge catalyst for change to the better, if we recognize the huge potential in it instead of interpreting it with our ego mind as something painful that we want to avoid. Fear causes the necessary chaos in a system so that it energetically can recalibrate itself at a higher level. Fear causes the necessary chaos in a system so that it energetically can recalibrate itself at a higher level. And in order to transmute that energy, we have to learn that there is that third option as an observer, without taking sides. We have to learn to react to fear with love, instead responding to fear with fear. So instead of reacting with blame, judgment, resentment, frustration, hate etc., we have to learn to react with gratitude, compassion, humor, joy etc. It seems paradox at first, but that is the only way to change the energy's frequency because we shift the resonance field into a higher vibration. That way, we force the energy to transmute to this level. And that step by step leads to raising our own vibration and the vibration of the collective to the fifth dimensional level. The plane of love, oneness, and abundance. The change curve when we go through our spiritual awakening or significant change in general, we go through a process that is depicted really well in the so-called change curve, originally called the grieving curve. Everyone is going through this curve, but duration and length of the individual stages can differ from individual to individual, depending on their nature and willingness and ability to embrace uncertainty. This model was first introduced by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, a Swiss-American psychiatrist, who was researching on death and near-death experiences. In her model, she described the 5 stages people go through when they are confronted with the fact that they will die and will only have a short time left to live. Today, this model is one of the most well-known process descriptions in change management of organizations and companies to show what people go through when they are confronted with sudden unexpected change that will impact their life significantly. This model can be used just as much to describe the individual spiritual awakening process and also the process the USA is going through now. Here are the 5 stages that Kubler-Ross had described in her model. 1. Denial. This is the phase when the person or a group struggles with the message. There must be a mistake. That cannot be real. 2. Anger. When the individual or the group recognizes that it is real and cannot be denied any longer, they become frustrated and lash out. Questions arise like why? Who is to blame for this? Paired with the sense of this is not fair. This is when all the bashing, cussing, blaming, and judging, including lots of rage and hate, takes place. This is often the phase when people leave an organization to work somewhere else to stay in the old and well-known comfort zone to not have to face the change. Just as many people do right now by leaving the US. 3. Bargaining. After the realization that all the hate and anger cannot change the undeniable fact, it is replaced by the hope to be able to bargain for a better solution. This can include promises to change, and trying to compromise. 4. Depression. After it becomes clear that compromising and bargaining will not be the solution, the individual or group goes into a deep depression. Why bother? What's the point? In this stage, the despair and recognition of the mortality/an unchangeable fact takes over. People pull back, become silent, refuse to talk to anyone, and are mourning and crying a lot. This phase is also called the Valley of Despair. 5. Acceptance. This is the stage after the deep processing and grieving to accept undeniable facts and situations and the inevitable future. I can't fight it, I might as well prepare for it. They start to embrace the new circumstances and start supporting it and joining the new direction. The individual now sees the situation from a stable and calm condition without being emotional or overthinking it anymore. Now, after having read this, do you recognize yourself, your own process, and what the US is going through right now? Just for the fun of it, let's dig deeper and look into the process of spiritual awakening, using the 5 stages to understand what we go through and draw the parallels to the USA. 1. Shock/denial. No way, I am not doing this. We are usually kicked into our spiritual awakening by a huge trigger. A near-death experience, a sudden illness, a twin flame encounter. A trigger that is energetically powerful enough to set the process of change into motion. A trigger that mirrors back our deepest shadows and fears to us. Something that is strong enough to force us onto the path that will lead back to our authentic true self. We come into chaos. Our system comes into chaos. After the first initial shock of this trigger, the first thing that happens is that we want to get back to normal. After the initial shock of this trigger, the first thing that happens is that we want to get back to normal. We deny the intense feelings and the longing that was initiated. We want to get rid of it and get back into our normal life again where it was safe and comfortable. We are completely overwhelmed by all of the things going on and by the absolute unpredictability we are facing. Nothing makes sense anymore. Our life does not make sense anymore. All we see and feel is a void that is super uncomfortable. We somehow know that there is no way back, but our head is not ready to accept it. Our ego wants to protect us and get us back into the safety zone. So we are trying to push it all away and getting back into normality as we knew it. We are denying the internal process, also because we don't understand at that point what is going on with us at all. We are just confused and feel helpless. It seems to be so cruel and unfair what is happening. We just want to get back to normal and pretend none of this ever happened. Looking into the US, this trigger was Trump's election. Nobody had expected him to win. And yet, there he is. Now looking into the US, this trigger was Trump's election. Nobody had expected him to win. And yet there he is. Nobody really knows what he is going to do. For many he is unpredictable and he is pushing through decisions at such a fast pace that is uncanny for many. He is not behaving or talking like a president and does not care what others think about him. He is mirroring back to the whole US what they are afraid of and what their deepest shadows are. He is unpredictable and people are very scared. The comfort zone is gone and it is not clear what is next. The whole nation went into chaos. And the first reaction of many was, no, this can't be true. I am not accepting this, denial. To anger, I don't want this. In our individual awakening process, this is when we get really pissed off about the changes. We do not want to accept that we have to let go of a lot of old beliefs and programming to come back into our true self and nature. We hate the situation and people involved. We blame, we judge, and we go totally into victim mode. We get completely frustrated that there seems to be some higher power that is relentlessly pushing us into that process. Why me? Why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? We are not able to see yet the blessing in disguise and that our soul and the universe are working hand in hand to give us back our birthright, true freedom. We do not want to accept that we have to let go of a lot of old beliefs and programming to come back into our true self and nature. This is the phase the US is entering right now. After a phase of denial and the hope that either the college would not approve the election or that the inauguration would somehow not take place, it now became real and an undeniable fact, the old comfort zone is gone. Ever since, rage, anger and frustration are prevailing. People are demonstrating on streets, are getting caught up in the duality of the situation and are lashing out. Division increases. This is what typically happens, when fear is responded to with fear. It is the game that humans played for eons, because they have never learned it in a different way. Many people are leaving the US to get back into a normal environment. They do not see yet, that the US is only the first nation to go through this change, causing an undertow that will pull the whole planet into this energetic shift. We can accelerate or delay that process for us as an individual, but sooner or later we will be presented with it again. 3. Bargaining. I do this and I get this in return, okay? We come to a point in our spiritual awakening, where we realize, okay, there is no way back and I need to somehow deal with it and I just want to feel better again. That is when we typically start bargaining with the universe. Okay, I am going to accept this process and will go through it, but then I will get back together with my twin flame in the end. Deal. Our ego is still active and wants to have something in return. A reward. Only then it makes sense to the ego to go through all of this. We are hoping to get through this by getting something to look forward to. We promise a lot to the universe if we get something in return. Because we are still acting out of fear. We are still expecting, interpreting, and believing certain things to be true and adamant, be it a more general belief such as believing in good and evil, heaven or hell, or a more specific belief, such as in a certain spiritual teaching or concept. So what we do in this phase is trying to compromise to keep the pain level as low as possible. Too bad that the universe works too perfectly for that. As long as we are acting out of fear, that is what we receive. That is how the law of attraction works. Sending out a fear frequency as our energetic order will supply us with situations that will prove that fear to us. In this phase, we are trying to compromise to keep the pain level as low as possible. The US has not reached this state yet, but we will probably see quite soon the first attempts to bargain with Trump and also bargaining between supporters and opponents to make this situation a bit less painful. Both sides will feel that the energy on the fear level has built up so much, that it needs some release. Bargaining is always the first attempt to do so, no matter if in a conflict of two individuals or the collective. It is the typical "let's talk about it" attempt. Unfortunately, talking about the situation and making compromises does not change the individual energetic fear patterns that people and/or the collective are carrying. This is why talking and compromising never lasts. After a short while, people fall back into their old behavioral, energetic, fear patterns. And that is why the next phase is inevitable and crucial from an energetic perspective. For depression, I don't care anymore. Welcome to the dark night of the soul. After all the denial, anger, frustration, and bargaining, we realize none of it helps to make this situation go away or change. The old life is gone, the new life has not started yet, and we are caught up between two worlds. We don't know who we are anymore and nothing makes sense anymore. We have lost a lot of old friends because they cannot relate to us any longer, and we have not found new people yet that get us. We are completely alone and feel very lost, lonely and are full of despair. We have a huge longing to leave this life and we don't even care whether we wake up the next morning or not. Often we wish, we would rather not. It is a phase that is leading us to ultimate surrender. We need to isolate ourselves and pull back, so that we can slowly discover who we truly are and to learn to feel instead of think. When we start embracing the feelings, we start to feel the bigger truth. We start to realize how much we have been programmed to believe certain things and that we have been cutting figures throughout our whole life to fulfill expectations of others. We recognize that none of this, no matter how hard we tried, made us happy. We realize that we need to cut unhealthy bonds, learn to set our healthy boundaries and put ourselves first. We are slowly discovering the ultimate importance of self-love to reach true freedom and happiness. We are slowly discovering the ultimate importance of self-love to reach true freedom and happiness. The US is already preparing for this isolation, too. America First will lead to a lot of cutting of unhealthy bonds that had kept the old system alive. People will collectively experience a dark night of the soul, learning slowly that they have been deceived, programmed, and kept in fear systematically for eons. They will start to see the bigger truth and how the system kept the collective in a very clever and modern system of slavery. They will slowly realize that fear was the food for this system all along. America First will become nothing else but a rediscovering of self-love and oneness in the collective. As we know from our own process, only when we are fully anchored in self-love, we are able to share unconditional love with everyone infinitely without being drained. Only when we are whole from within, we can inspire and support others. Just as individual spiritual teachers and leaders have taken this role for others to follow, the US will take this leadership position. Like a ripple effect, these high-energy frequencies of self-love will spread fast over the planet. 5. Acceptance. Okay, let's face it, let's embrace it. After having gone through the dark night of the soul and having learned the deeper meaning of self-love and after being able to see the bigger picture, we are entering the mode of acceptance. We still know that this path will present us pain and will bring all of our shadows to the surface until we have worked through it completely, layer by layer. But the bigger truth and the realization, that God/Source is not an entity outside of us, but works through us and that we are connected to God/Source through our heart, keeps us going. We are learning to trust our intuition and therefore trust God/Source and the perfection of everything more and more, and we learn to take one step at a time and stopping to focus on a certain goal or outlook. We slowly learn what it means to go with the flow, to let go of all expectations, attachments, and control. We realize that the only way into 5D is to transcend the ego mind completely and become like a blank slate. We slowly learn what it means to go with the flow, to let go of all expectations, attachments, and control. We realize that the only way into 5D is to transcend the ego mind completely and become like a blank slate. The US will also get into this mode sooner or later. The collective has the choice how long it will take. The faster people will learn the third way, to react to fear with love, the faster the system will recalibrate itself at a higher vibrational level. Also here, the process itself is unavoidable. It is simply the question how fast people are able to cause the necessary ripple effect of love frequencies to shift the collective energy up and out of fear. We need to accept that the old system is coming to an end and something new is about to be born, New Earth. So please, always remember, your free will gives you only one choice, fear or love. And with every choice you make in your life every day, you energetically contribute to the acceleration or delay of reaching true freedom for the human collective.